You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to N2K Cyberwire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, phishing schemes, and criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Dave Bittner, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan. Hey, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
We got some good stories to share this week, and once again, we're joined by our N2K colleague, host of the T-Minus Space Daily podcast, Maria Vermasis. Maria.
Hi, I'm here.
All right, we will be right back after this message from our show's sponsor. But first, a word from our sponsor, KnowBe4. Where would InfoSec professionals be without users making security mistakes? Working less than 60 hours per week, perhaps. Actually having a weekend every so often. We get it. User behavior can be a challenge. But users can also be an InfoSec professional's greatest asset once properly equipped. What do we mean by that? Well, stay with us, and in a few minutes, we'll hear from our sponsors at KnowBe4 on that very question. All right, we are back. And before we dive into our stories this week, we have some great news to share for us, for our listeners, for the podcasting community at large. Maria is joining us now every week on our show. So we went from, yes, we went from having her only being on occasionally, and then we were able to have her on every other week. But we've done some juggling around of schedules, and we're thrilled to say that Maria is going to be with us here every week. So, Maria, welcome. We are happy to have you join us.
Thank you for tolerating me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
We do much more than tolerate you.
Yes, that's right.
I'm honestly really delighted to be here. I love this show, so I'm really glad to now be a part of it. So it's very exciting. I'm really glad to be here.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our stories here. Maria, why don't you kick things off for us?
All right, we're going to start with everybody's favorite pill supplement scams. Let's just get into it. SpawnCon pill supplement scams. Always an issue. This is nothing new, but it's always getting worse. So I thought I would share a new wrinkle on how it's getting worse. So for folks who may need a familiarizer, pill supplement scams and sponsored content scams, they sell fake health and wellness products. So low-cost miracle products or treatments that promise to cure any amount of chronic diseases like arthritis, diabetes, cancer. There was a really interesting blog post that inspired my story today by our friends at Bitdefender Labs that analyzed global health-related scams over 3 months from March to May of this year. And they uncovered some interesting and I would say also concerning trends. Basically, AI, big surprise, is just hitting the gas pedal on the encrudification, to put it politely, of these malicious sponsored content posts. They are now allowing scammers to hyper-target potential victims in languages and geographies that maybe were not previously available to them or in the spotlight. So a lot of these scams, no surprise where they're happening online, they're happening on Meta's platform. So pick your poison.
No.
WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, Instagram. Yeah, I know. I was like never.
Meta is allowing scam ads on their platform?
I know. And I know this will also shock you, but often pages that are farming likes, reposting terrible AI art or videos that have been stolen from some other platform, they're getting bought and sold on the dark web and then maybe getting rebranded and start churning this crud out.
Right.
I know. You're shocked. All right. So as with many spammy SpawnCon posts nowadays, we've all seen them. I know I see them all the time. You have AI-generated images, videos, and our favorites, deepfakes, to create convincing content. So like having medical professionals like Brad Pitt telling you why you need to buy this supplement, things like
Now,
that.
hold on. I will say this. If Brad Pitt were going to tell me something about acting, I would listen. He is in my top 3 actors. It's Brad
But a
Pitt.
diabetes cure,
But a
even if it's
diabetes
not
cure, right,
Wilford
exactly.
Brimley,
No,
diabetes.
yeah, right. I don't think I'm going to listen to Wilford Brimley before I listen to the late Wilford Brimley. Before I listen to Brad Pitt, beautiful in shape Brad Pitt.
Right.
I'm not listening to. He doesn't have diabetes.
No.
Excuse you, diabetes. No,
Diabetes.
Yeah.
Has there been a deep fake of Wilford Brimley? Is my other question, but I'll just leave that one there. But as you might suspect, beyond Brad Pitt and other notable professionals like himself, these scammers are now using deepfake tech to impersonate more localized medical professionals like Dr. Heinz Luscher, Dr. Jan Sula, Dr. Fekiti Andre. These are people whose names I do not know or recognize, but I am not the target audience here, so I'm not supposed to. And it's notable to me that it's not just doctors that are being impersonated on this hyper-local scale. Bitdefender found a boosted sponsored post impersonating a well-known Romanian priest that gathered over 6,000 reactions and 900 shares. Interesting. So in all, from just March to May of this year on these various platforms that we've mentioned, they found over 1,000 deepfake videos of this nature promoting over 40 different kinds of fake medical supplements in Romanian, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, Russian, Czech, Slovak, Slovene, Latvian, Lithuanian, Hungarian, Bulgarian, Polish, Greek, Croatian, and more.
Wow.
And
well
more.
Done.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that 100% of the Romance languages? You got Italian, Romanian, Spanish,
you got some
Portuguese,
extras in
and
there
French.
that are not Romance.
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, scammers are crafting these highly personalized and contextually accurate messages in the target's native languages with correct grammar, sometimes even with like idioms that are correct. So that allows these scammers to evade the obvious alarm bells when scams sound off.
Right.
You know, like it doesn't sound like somebody wrote this who knows my language, or it's in English and I don't really speak English primarily. So they can now target entirely new groups of people who may have been excluded unfairly when scams were often more largely just in English or primarily in English.
Well,
so they've opened up a whole new pool of potential victims.
Here's one place where equity might be bad, right?
Yeah, I know.
Right.
And
I guess
much like this. Yeah, go ahead.
selfishly, you could say, well, that makes it less likely that they're going to be coming after me.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
It's not a force multiplier at all. Yeah.
No. It's not a zero-sum game either, I guess.
Right. And there are going to be more of these guys, so I don't know that this makes it any less likely that you're going to get hit.
Right.
That's right.
Over time, I should say. Maybe initially.
Yeah. And sadly, these scams do operate in ways that are familiar to, I'm sure, all our listeners, that they prey on the already quite vulnerable. So people who are medically or financially vulnerable or both, they especially target the elderly. And especially now, geographies where these scams were really not prevalent before. So awareness may be quite low or it might be outdated. So in one case, they found some cases of media scam pages that these social websites will refer people to. And instead of doing an obvious, like, hey, a clone of CNN, where maybe the target doesn't read pages on CNN, because again, not in their language, they actually are cloning media websites that are local to them. So like their national or regional website. So that again, they're really hyper targeting people, and they're getting really good at what they're doing. As for the messaging you see in the scams, again, familiar to a lot of us. They prey on skepticism of the medical establishment. These supplements are 100% natural, whatever that means.
Right.
The pharmaceutical companies or doctors can't be trusted, or they're hiding things from you. And it's complete with those hyper-localized deep fake videos from those local experts of doctors whose names I don't recognize, giving fake pseudoscientific sounding explanations about why that totally not a scam supplement is actually real. One thing I thought was very interesting about their findings, amongst the many things, was unlike a lot of the English scam pages, these websites themselves are not actually looking to scrape or steal credit card or financial info, because they're not actually asking for that. They often will just ask for a name and phone number. And then the potential victim gets a phone call in their language asking them for the financial info. And that's where the problems really start. And potentially even worse, you actually might get the supplements you've been trying to order after being upsold. And those supplements are probably extremely dangerous, or at the very least, very dodgy.
Wow.
Right.
Fun.
The best thing you can hope for there is that nothing happens. Right?
Yeah.
It's a placebo.
Yeah, yep.
Well, and I
Yeah,
know
like
also with a common additional scam with a lot of these supplement companies is that they sort of sneak by the fact that you're not just signing up for a shipment, you're signing up for a subscription.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So every 3 months you're on the hook for $150, worth of, I don't know, ground up camel toes or something. I don't know, whatever it is,
Yummy.
Yeah, delicious.
Yes, the recurring charges are a big one that, Bitdefender on their blog post was saying, watch out for that one. But so, I mean, our listeners, I'm sure many of them are saying, oh, I would never fall for something like this. Don't buy supplements online from spammy websites. It is very easy for us to say. But to me, the fact that these scammers are now able to hyper-target people who may not have been aware of these scams or thought they didn't apply to them is very concerning. So to me, it would be maybe get the awareness out to our friends who are multilingual that scams, there used to be sort of common thinking, I know I used to hear it, that scams wouldn't bother in our little language because we're too minor for that. They only go after the big guys.
Right.
Well, there are no, it's so easy to do now. It doesn't matter. You can cast that wide net. Or my favorite, only Americans would fall for these scams because our healthcare is garbage. That was another one I would hear a lot. I'm too smart for that. I'm too smart for that because only Americans fall for that. So I'm sorry. People fall for this stuff all over the place. So.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my favorite. I would hear that one a lot. So, so tell your friends to make sure that they're only ordering from legitimate places. Make sure that they research any website there you might be thinking about. Make sure it's legit. Of course, be skeptical of ads that are promising quick fixes. Avoid aggressive sales tactics on anybody who's trying to sell you something with a hard upsell is probably doing something dodgy. And keep an eye out for those recurring charges. So those are things to keep in mind.
You know what this made me think of that I hadn't really considered before? This combination of fake imitation websites, but also deep fakes, which is that I think it would be really convincing if someone were to spin up a fake version of my local news affiliate website. You think about, I think about my parents' generation who very much relied on and still very much trust their local news anchors.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
That is, they still, that's where they get their news, their weather, their sports, that sort of thing. So if you could spin up an imitation website that my parents, for example, would think is local. And those are people I trust. I've been watching them for decades in some cases. So you combine that with some deep fakes, and it'd be really convincing.
Deep fakes of Mallory Sofaste would be...
Right. Friend of the show, Mallory Sofaste, who works for the local...
WMAR?
Yeah, local news affiliate.
Right.
Plenty of footage to go off of to make those deep fakes. Not that you need a lot of it anyway, but and also those local websites. I don't know about yours where you live, but ours, where I am, they always look really spammy anyway. At best, extremely dodgy to begin with.
Right.
So how can you tell
true.
it's a fake website? The legit ones already look kind of fake anyway.
Right.
So
yeah. That's true. They're always loaded up with those spammy ads.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
I was looking at one yesterday. It was terrible. Or earlier this week. Not yet. It doesn't matter. I was looking at one. It was awful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
well, that's interesting.
Hard to tell. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. You said this is from Bitdefender?
Bitdefender. Yes. This is their research.
Right.
Yep.
We'll have a link to that in the show notes. My story this week comes from the folks at NBC News, actually. And this is a story about a couple of women who have been charged in romance scams that go all the way back to 2009. So, decades, or I guess a decade and a half.
Yeah, they've been at this for a while.
Right. And the law enforcement who arrested these two women who were working as if not a team, in concert with each other. I guess they were partnered up and doing trading tips and tricks and those sorts of things. They stole over $7 million from elderly men.
Wow.
They were arrested in Miami and New York City. One in Miami, one in New York City, just a couple of weeks ago. What struck me about this is they were not afraid to do in-person meetings. So they would target their victims, this article says, through in-person meetings, phone calls, text messages, and also an online dating platform. And then, tale as old as time, they would build romantic or close personal relationships with these men, earning their trust. But then once they had that, they would start spinning up these stories, getting the men to send them money. Saying that they wanted to start a fake business, or one of them even convinced one of the men that they needed an organ transplant. So I need a new spleen. how much?
It's a very high-touch scam.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And I don't want one of those cheap spleens.
Only the best spleen for you, dear.
That's right. That's right. Oh, honey, the hospital said they want to give me a cut rate spleen. Well, that's not going to work for my little lady.
You don't need a spleen to live.
Oh, well,
That's true.
That would be my response.
Yeah.
Then the metaphor falls apart. How dare
Right,
you?
exactly. Try again.
Scam falls apart. I meant lung. You can live with one. Live pretty well with one.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Joe has not been.
That's why I'm
Hit
never
by
going to
any
fall for the
scams.
spleen transplant scam.
No,
You don't
he is
need one
far
of
too
those. That's
skeptical.
fine.
Right.
Just
So
walk it off.
These ladies now face charges of money laundering, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Each of the charges carry a maximum prison sentence of 20 years. The U.S. Attorney Damian Williams pointed out how they were particularly callous, going after elderly individuals, seeking companionship, but then using the proceeds to live in luxury. And one of the ladies convinced one of these elderly men that they were in an exclusive relationship. She asked him for money for rent and living expenses, which he provided. Eventually, she got his credit card information, after which she changed the account's password and then racked up thousands of dollars of charges on the card. She got him to wire her $220,000 that she said was to start a catering business, but instead she used the money to pay off loans for her boat and luxury car. So, I mean, she probably served snacks on the boat, so it's kind of a catering business.
A charcuterie board.
Right, exactly. Right. She picked up at Wegmans on the way.
Right.
But they say this one victim lost over $500,000 to one of these ladies. One of the other ones scams that they point out here was that this woman whose last name was Stanley, she pretended to be a psychic. And she told the victim his money was tainted with bad influences.
Okay.
But that she could cleanse and protect his money if he wired it to her. And eventually she got about $1 million.
That is amazing to me because, Dave, this is the one I'm gonna be the guilty guy here. That would never work on me. Right.
No. Shock.
But just because this one wouldn't work on me doesn't mean it wouldn't work on somebody.
Yeah.
And it did work on somebody for $1 million.
Right. $1 million.
I'm in the wrong business. $1 million.
Right?
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Maria, I remind you, 20 years per offense.
Well, they got to
How long
catch
do
you
I have
first.
left anyway?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right. What's the old joke? I'd be out by now. So again, this was a joint effort by the U.S. attorneys and the FBI, and they're happy to get these two ladies off the street here. But you can say over $7 million over about 15 years with just two ladies, and that's quite a haul. Great that they're going to be brought to justice here, but you got to feel for the victims here who.
When the federal government takes you to court, you're probably going to lose.
That's right.
The federal attorneys, the Department of Justice attorneys do not proceed if they don't think they can win the case.
It's a really interesting point, Joe, because so many of the stories we talk about here, law enforcement just isn't interested in following up. Either they're not equipped to do it, they don't have the manpower to do it, or they just don't think there's any hope of seeing anything come of it. So it just makes me think of, to what level do you need to rise in order to get the feds, the FBI, on your trail?
It looks like it's about $7 million.
It's about $7 million. Yeah.
Gee, well, my question is, how did these two women actually collaborate on this? Did they have like a Jira system with ticketing, or like how do you?
Yeah.
I mean, how does this work with these two women? Like what is their system? I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Well, they just talked on the phone.
I was curious about that as well. And the story doesn't really go into
like how they supported each other on this. Yeah.
Right. You know, I'm imagining, and how did they get their start? You know, this would make a really compelling, lifetime
Netflix
true story.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
I'm shopping the rights right now in my head, so that's why I'm asking. So.
Yeah. I don't know, but the other thing I guess I wonder about is being that these ladies were not afraid of meeting with these men personally. How are they stringing them along? You know, to what degree? Where's there, if any, sort of physical relationship?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there might have been lots. There might have been none. Who knows? It could be that these men were in a stage of their life where all they were looking for was companionship. But,
right.
You just never know. So
yeah. I don't know how they collaborated. I would imagine they knew each other and they would either meet, talk on the phone, text message, those
That's
kind
what
of things.
I think. Yeah.
And meeting people in person, that makes this a lot more believable. I mean, because one of the things we always hear about romance scams is you never meet the person.
Right.
Right. Yeah. We hear about the I can't remember what the listener's name was, but the grandmother was Nana that was trying to get somebody out of IRS jail. Remember that? And there never is anybody there. Here, there is a person there. And you get to see them and interact with them. That makes it much more believable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine even for concerned family who maybe if they figured out that something was a bit off, the defense from the victim was, well, I've met her. I go to dinner with her all the time. She's real.
Right.
You know, how can this be a scam? Yeah. Oh, geez.
She's coming over for Christmas this year. Right.
Get the table setting ready. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. All I need to do is buy her a plane ticket and a room in a luxury
Cleanse
hotel.
my
She's
money.
going to be here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, that is my story. Again, that comes from the folks over at NBC News, and we will have a link to that story in the show notes. We're going to take a quick break here. We will be back with Joe's story right after this message from our sponsor. We were talking about making users into an asset for security professionals. Simply put, users want to do the right thing. They're often just lacking the knowledge to do so. That's one of the reasons KnowBe4 has released Security Coach, a real-time security coaching tool that takes alerts from your existing security stack and sends immediate coaching to users who've taken risky actions. For example, imagine a user has visited a high-risk website or tried to open a document containing malware. Existing security tools will likely block that action, but the user might not understand why. Security Coach analyzes these alerts and provides users with relevant security tips via email or Slack, coaching them on why the action they just took was risky. Help users learn from their mistakes and strengthen your organization's security culture with Security Coach. Learn more about Security Coach at knowbe4.com/securitycoach. That's knowbe4.com/securitycoach. All right, we are back. Joe, it is your turn. What do you got for us this week?
Dave, we all have heard the story of the evil twin attack, right?
Yes. Yep, go on.
This is the attack. It's kind of a technical attack, but it's why we say don't use public Wi-Fi, right? Because the public Wi-Fi you're connecting to may not be an actual Wi-Fi service.
Right.
It could be a malicious Wi-Fi service. And I've heard a number of people over the past couple of years say that this is really not all that much of a threat anymore because every single website that you connect with now is encrypted with the TLS, the Transport Layer Security, which is like SSL improved upon with better cryptographic ciphers.
Yeah, it's the little lock emblem that comes up in the URL bar of your browser.
Right. Well, they don't even have the little lock emblem. Now they tell you, hey, this site is not encrypted.
Right.
Right. That's how commonplace it is.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for correcting me. You're right.
Right. And so that you get warned when that doesn't happen. And I've heard people argue that this makes the evil twin, you're not going to be able to perform an evil twin attack because chances are that, well, in fact, there's almost no chance that the person is going to have your root certificate installed on their machine, which will let you decrypt their traffic.
Okay.
Right? Because that's really what makes things work is these root certificates. And they're up at some certificate authority. And this is a new attack that has happened. This was sent in to us by Neville. And it has to do with the fact that you're not on you're not in a coffee shop. You're on a plane.
Okay.
And Neville sent us an article from Forbes that was written by Zach Doffman. It says, federal agency issues new security advice if you use airplane Wi-Fi. And it's not talking, there's another link in this article to the actual AFP, which, by the way, is Australian Federal Police. And they have arrested somebody who was out of West Australia because on a plane, he would turn on fake Wi-Fi spots that look like, access points that look like the plane's Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. Now,
jeez,
have any of you ever tried using Wi-Fi on a plane before?
Oh, yeah. I do it all the time.
It's a miserable experience. Very slow.
Okay.
You're not watching your own videos. You're still stuck watching the videos that are probably on some media server in the back of the plane.
Yeah.
But this man, who is a 42-year-old, they don't name him because he is, I guess, innocent until proven guilty in Australia. He's going to face 9 charges for these alleged cyber crime events or crime offenses. What he did was he didn't really do a man-in-the-middle attack. What he did when you logged onto his malicious access point is he presented you a page that looked like your social media account or your email account. Or he'd say, log in, authenticate with whatever. And it was as if the access point was saying, you can authenticate to this access point through Facebook or through Gmail or through Yahoo or whatever.
Right.
So you'd give up the credentials, and this guy had a bunch of credentials on his device when they arrested him.
Huh.
And they arrested him. They investigated when flight attendants realized, hey, there's an extra Wi-Fi access point on this plane. Something's going on.
A good vigilant flight attendants.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. They then got a warrant for his home, and they searched his home back in May, which resulted in his arrest charges. They found more information. So I want to talk about this a little bit. This is an interesting way to get around the correct reasoning. I don't know if it's correct. I still say don't use public Wi-Fi. I think it's just risky. But the reasoning of saying that's not really a threat is sound reasoning, right? You have to go out to get these. You can go out. You still go out and get the public search. You still get the communication encrypted, even if they are in the middle. All they're seeing is encrypted traffic. And if you use a VPN, then they're not even seeing they have to decrypt it twice, which they're not going to do. It's never going to happen. So this guy has bypassed all of that. And by adding a little bit of patience to the process, when he gets off the plane, now he can go out and log into your accounts because he's captured your username and password.
Right.
So one of the key things I wanted to talk about here is when you are thinking about having an account taken over, the worst possible account that can happen to is your email account, because you protect your email is your keys to the kingdom, your internet. As awful as email is, as terrible as a system as it is for a modern world, a modern internet, it still is where you get your password reset requests sent to. Mm-hmm. So if you lose control of that, you're going to lose control of a lot of other accounts.
True.
So you should protect your email, your main email that receives all these messages. exactly like you do your banking credentials. You should use multi-factor authentication, and if you can do it, you should use a hardware token like a FIDO Alliance token. Be mindful of that. So I don't know. I thought this was a novel attack to steal people's accounts, and it just exploits the fact that they're on an airplane. So maybe from an economic standpoint, hey, these people can afford to fly a plane. They might have bank accounts worth taking over.
I'm curious, if someone had multi-factor authentication, let's say on their email account, and provided their credentials on this flight,
right?
Presumably they'd be protected.
Yeah, they would be, even if they had the one-time password codes, because by the time that plane lands, that code's going to expire.
Right.
So yeah, even having something as simple as just a text message that goes to your phone would have stopped this attack from happening.
Okay.
Yep. So it's a good thing. I do want to say one side note. I want to say hats off to the Australian Federal Police on their web design.
Okay.
They have a quick exit button in the upper right that takes you right to Google. So if you're
neat.
if you're looking at something, you're like, I'm on the police webpage and somebody's coming up behind you, you can hit the quick exit button and you go to Google.
Right.
Which is nice, I think. I think more sites need to have that.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, early days of the internet, the website for the Car Talk guys had a boss button on it.
I remember that.
When you hit the boss button, up popped a spreadsheet with all sorts of numbers on it. So if you're spending your day reading through the forums on the Car Talk website and your boss came up, you could just hit the boss button and it's good times. It was a more innocent time.
Yes.
Back in the internet. All right. Well, we will have a link to that story as well. And of course, we would love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like us to consider for the show, you can email us. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com. All right, Joe and Maria, it is time to move on to our catch of the day.
Dave found this one this week, so it's a good one. I really like this one, Dave.
It goes like this. I hope this message finds you well. Recently, I was approached by an individual who paid a substantial sum to commission a hex against you. However, during the casting of this hex, an extraordinary event occurred that I feel compelled to share with you. As I was performing the ritual, a presence emerged, none other than a spirit of one of your deceased relatives. This spirit appeared with great urgency and sincerity, pleading for me to undo the hex that had been set upon you. Their concern for your well-being was palpable, and it deeply moved me. It is because of this profound encounter that I am reaching out to you now. It is clear that there is a spiritual interference that must be addressed promptly. The hex, though initiated with malicious intent, has been acknowledged and petitioned against by a benevolent force.
Bravo, sir. Bravo.
I just imagine somebody with a chicken sacrificing a chicken to something, and
I'm trying to do my best Vincent Price there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was the first thing I thought.
Good.
I mean, it wasn't Vincent Price, but it was very Vincent Price-esque.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
There's only one
definitely
Vincent Price.
Yeah.
influenced, right? Yes.
So hexing as a service or dehexing as a service, or what is this exactly?
Yeah, I think you have to send $1,000 in Bitcoin to get the hex removed.
Right.
Oh, well, I'll put that on my honey-do list.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's
Again,
reasonable.
Another one that wouldn't work on me.
Well,
You sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
A deceased relative, I don't have any of those.
Yeah.
All mine are alive.
yeah, but it's easy to imagine there are folks that this would scare them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, well, earlier in the show, we had somebody, your story, Dave, talked about somebody who got scared that their money was contaminated with evil spirits.
Right.
And they sent $1 million.
Right.
Somebody's absolutely going to fall for this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Shame.
true.
That's
is true.
All right. Well, once again, we would love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like us to consider for our catch of the day, you can email us. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com. want to thank all of you for listening, and of course, we want to thank our sponsors at KnowBe4. They are experts in helping users do the right thing through new school security awareness training. And that's Hacking Humans, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to hackinghumans@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode is produced by Liz Stokes. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. I'm Dave Bittner.
I'm Joe Kerrigan.
And I'm Maria Varmazes.
Thanks for listening.
Cock. It was so hard for me to not do a chicken noise for Dave's reading.